Greetings all, aloha. I have one of the local cannabis experts and authorities here today. We were going to have Donald Rump with us also, as we did last time, but I'm afraid Mr. Rump had an emergency. His wife is ill, and he had to take off. So today we have Brent. And first off, I'd like Brent to discuss with the crowd out there, with the viewers, about some of the breeding and some of the work he's done here with cannabis seeds on this island, because some people think that Hawaii is a perfect environment for this crop, but trust me, it is not. There are all kinds of problems here with it. And so when you can find varieties that will grow out in the field here, just like a corn stalk, you're really getting along well. And I understand that Brent has a particular variety. What are you calling this one?
Yeah, it's a cross between Dragons Web Kush and Charlotte's Web, and I've been working on it for about 5 or 6 years, and it does really well here. It's a low THC called Dragons Web.
Dragons Web, a low THC. Okay, so like, what sort of factors are we dealing with here? CBD content is...
Yeah, so the Charlotte's Web is more of a 50-50 type of CBD to THC ratio. Mm-hmm. So when we cross that with the Dragon's Blood Kush, we got different leaf structure, different branch structure, and different THC output. So we reduced the Dragon's Blood Kush down to about 15 to 17%.
Well, okay, so 15 to 17%, that sort of takes me back to the old days in the 60s there a little bit, because these days it seems like almost everything is over 20%. I assume then the complexity of the cannabinoids that are in there, and perhaps the terpenes create a desirable...
yeah, that's the effect that we were looking for, is the anti-seizure properties that the Charlotte's Web has, as well as the ability for someone to partake and still hold down a job. Mm-hmm. So someone that's in pain or having some sort of could be a chronic disease, they need to be able to do things, not just sit around and, have couch lock from myrcene. And
yeah, so not incapacitating, in other words.
Yeah, we're trying to avoid that. But there's, there's situations for every strain as well. So this is just happens to be a strain that you can be comfortable with. Gives you a little higher vibe, I think.
Well, that's something that I've been working on with my partner, Helen, for problems with the twitchy legs at night and a bit of insomnia. And she does not like feeling high.
Yeah.
And so I've been trying to work with individually extracted cannabinoids in a pure crystal form, trying to see if we can find something with her that won't get her high, but will stop her legs from being restless and help her sleep.
Yeah, the RLS.
Oh, we're working with a bunch. Yeah, right. Although I don't think it's the classic one, because it doesn't respond to the usual treatments. But anyway, yeah, there's the idea of reducing the THC content is actually a good one for a lot of us. And the fact, I often find if you're even just smoking it in a recreational fashion, sometimes way too much THC ain't much fun.
Oh yeah, I carry around a CBD pen so that I can drop my THC levels, because I'm a lightweight, I'm super lucky, right? I've got all these friends that are just such great growers, way better than me, producing these strains that are, for me, incapacitating.
Mm-hmm. Too much. Yeah, too much. Yeah, that happened to me because way back when Nixon had them spraying paraquat down in Mexico back in the very early 70s, I guess it was, roughly. Well, you couldn't trust anything that was coming into the country anymore after that, and then eventually almost all the importation really ceased, except for big business guys with submarines, and they're bringing it from Colombia, and then of course that started the cocaine trade, because who's going to bring crappy, heavy pot that gets spoiled with something like a submarine or an airplane when you could bring cocaine, which is worth a whole lot more money and not as perishable. But that's really what started the business, was him wanting to spray Mexico. But in those days, strains were pretty balanced, generally. Some of them were pretty high in THC, but most of them were pretty balanced. Had a lot of terpene content because of the way they were being grown out on a mountainside someplace, getting beat by rainstorms and whatnot in the wind. Not like the warehouse stuff that they grow today, where everything seems almost the same. But because of environmental work in mining, I ended up, back in the mid-1980s, I stopped using. Didn't touch. I didn't touch for 20, 25 years until California passed medical laws. And my friends started dropping pot on my table. And I'm going, this ain't legal for me, guys. I don't have a permit for this. And so I went out, and for arthritis in California, I got a card and started to use again. We got over here, and they didn't have any dispensaries at all at the time. And so I had started using it to some extent. So I had to start growing again. And that was something I'd quit doing in the very early 70s. I hadn't touched it. When I came back to the world, I couldn't believe what had happened. Yeah, I thought that I had just gotten old. I had become stodgy, and I could not enjoy life anymore. Because what I remembered in the 60s is people smoked pot, they listened to the Grateful Dead, they danced, they got the munchies, they made love, they laughed, they had fun. It was enjoyable. There never would have been a Woodstock, if it hadn't been. And boy, I got back, and I took one toke of that stuff they were growing in California, and first thing I did is get up at 2:30 in the morning and start selling my stocks because I was afraid the market was going to crash. I went into complete anxiety and paranoia, and I'm going, what is happening here? Well, that's when I began to research, realize they bred out all the CBD and some of the terpenes and that,
Right.
And so I started mixing high CBD strains and so on, and I come up with the Summer of Love again once, But man, when I came back to it, I didn't even recognize this herb. It was not the same plant at all.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, most everything that we got came from bricks. And those bricks had molded to the point to where, all the weed that we got was brown.
Oh yeah. Ugh.
And honestly, I didn't know any better. I just thought weed was brown.
Oh, yeah.
And that is still a thing with some people. Like, they don't notice it turning brown.
Yeah. It's called oxidation and eventually molding.
Yeah, and we get, and the dates on the jars from the dispensary, oftentimes those are a year old.
Yeah.
And I don't, it's hard for me to understand.
Well, it's experience. That's all there is to it. I mean, I did not really have that experience way back when, because I was a musician. And being a musician, we had connections, okay?
Always had weed, right.
And what we had was, true Panama Red, real Acapulco Gold, the Vietnamese that would send the soldiers to the medic tent, for psychotic reactions, this kind of stuff. All right. I'd seen that crummy, brown, moldy Mexican people smoking it. I wouldn't touch it.
Yeah, that's all we got.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I know I've heard people talk about how, the old Mexican pot, it was junk. That's not true, man. I traveled in Mexico a lot during the 60s and 70s. Man, you meet up with the hippies who were growing the stuff down there and the farmers. They had some sweet stuff.
It was bad.
Yeah, and when people talk today, I saw an interview on YouTube with Tommy Chong and some of the guys from Jackass. It would be, what was his name? Oh, I can't remember right
Van
now.
Margera or something.
So one of the dudes that was terribly strung out for a while and addicted, and that he was having a conversation about how the weed is so strong today, you know, and Tommy's going, bullshit. He said we had Lebanese, man, we had Vietnamese, we had all this stuff. He said it is no stronger today. In fact, my recollection, I agree with Tommy. My recollection of some of the stuff we had around years ago was more devastating than what we have today as far as the buzz, because it was being grown in conditions that enhance the production of the terpenes and the cannabinoids, because it
growing
was
in the right place at the right time.
That's right, yeah, you know, and nowadays it seems like almost everything, in my opinion, is just a degree of how much THC. Otherwise, it's all about the same. Everything kind of smells the same. Everything kind of tastes a bit the same. There's a terpene they get in a lot of the West Coast cannabis that I have a hard time dealing with. I refer to it as belly button lint terpene. It's common. It's a taste that's in almost all of it. They bred it in there somewhere along the line. And I actually find most of the West Coast stuff to be objectionable because of the flavor of that particular terpene. Yeah,
I think we got some West Coast talent coming in a couple of weeks.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, we got my buddy Andrew is doing the Jungle Cup.
Oh yeah,
Rumble in the Jungle.
They keep telling me I got to go down there with my camera. And I keep saying, well, if I judge, I can't drive, and if I ride with you guys, you judge, you can't drive. So I haven't figured that one out yet. So
yeah, we'll be going down early on the 14th at Uncle Robert's, and I'm not sure what time the actual judging starts, but it's a great venue, and it'll be a great time right on the beach.
Well, I'm going to try to make it down there this time. They've been inviting me for years, and I keep saying no. Well, Brent, it's been nice meeting you.
Hey,
nice to know about your strain there that you got, and well, we'll talk more in the future.